The Italians began their obsession with coffee in 1638 with the arrival of the first beans in Venice. "100 years later, the first coffee shop opened, and soon there were over 300 cafes in Venice alone. 1947 saw the first espresso coffee brewed in the northern city of Milan. And this gave birth to a vibrant coffee culture that was to reach well beyond Italian shores." Welcome to my hometown, Melbourne, Australia. This is the coffee capital down under, where Italians make up one of the largest migrant communities. This is where they shorten the word cafe latte to latte. This Italy of the Antipodes is where you will find some great coffee and some great cafes. Italians have been in Australia since Cook's first fleet sailed by in 1770. 2 members of Cook's crew were of Italian descent, and there was also an Italian convict aboard. The great gold rush of the 1850s saw a dramatic influx of Italian immigrants, all keen to make their fortune down under. Today, there are more than 90,000 Italian descendants in this city. And as you might expect, there's some pretty good coffee as well. When you want to explore coffee culture in Melbourne, it's difficult to know where to begin because there are so many great cafes. So I am enlisting the help of an expert. My guide for today's coffee tour is an Australian-born Italian named Maria Paoli, who's worked as a hospitality industry trainer for many years.
This is one of our oldest cafes in Melbourne, owned originally by the Gondiotto family.
Yes.
And this is a place where all of the spaghetti mafia used to gather.
Spaghetti mafia?
The spaghetti mafia.
That sounds a bit comical. Were they real mafia? Or?
No. They were just... This is where Rino had this vision of bringing all the restaurateurs together.
Okay.
And he, for years, let me tell you, for years we didn't have licensed restaurants. So the good old-fashioned coffee cup actually became a way of serving wine.
Oh, I see.
So it went undetected for about 30 years.
Was there like a secret code?
There was a secret code.
Handshake, maybe?
Una coca, they'd say.
Is that right?
Absolutely. So out came the wine.
And now this is more like a restaurant nowadays.
This is a wonderful restaurant. Does serve a great cup of coffee as well, and owned by one of our original cafe owners and coffee roasters in Melbourne. And it was the place where they all gathered. And yes, one of our first places to serve coffee and wine illegally.
Yeah, illegally. We won't say anything, of course.
No.
Maria explained how those early Italian immigrants were responsible for establishing the Australian coffee industry and its first espresso cafes.
Here we are in a cafe culture where we have over 1,000 cafe restaurants across Melbourne.
Yeah.
3 of our major retail strips, 70% of those strips are cafes or restaurants.
Yeah.
And a great majority of Australians drink some form of coffee. Cafes and coffee is all about gathering people together. It's about meeting with friends. It's about socialising. And I believe it is the next big boom. I mean, we are converting to espresso drinking at a rate of 10% every year. So we have wonderful roasting houses that are dealing with fresh blends of coffee, bringing in green beans from all over the world.
In nearby Burke Street, you'll find an understated cafe that is thought to have been the first establishment to serve espresso coffee in the proper Italian way. Pellegrini's Espresso Bar is a coffee institution in Melbourne, and Maria introduced me to the charismatic Italian owner, Sisto Malaspina. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you.
Good morning.
How are you?
My name is Sisto. Yours is?
Paul.
Paul.
Very nice to meet you.
Welcome.
How long have you been here, Sisto?
Me or the shop?
You.
Me since 1974.
1970. That was the year I was born.
And the shop since 1954.
Really? So you've made coffee all that time?
Most of the times, yeah. This opened in 1954 by 2 brothers, Pellegrini's boys, Leo and Bildo Pellegrini's.
Yes.
Originally from Tuscany, near Lucca. So they decided to recreate a little Italian bar in Melbourne, which was the very first bar in Melbourne with a proper coffee machine.
And tell me about Melbourne over those years. What have you seen change around you? Yeah, you've seen a lot of change.
Melbourne has always been a beautiful city, first and foremost. Mm-hmm. But it was like a dormant, beautiful city. But in the last, about 30, 40 years, 30 years, 20, the change has been enormous. With a cafe event, but life in general. We've come from an indoor society to an outdoor society, cafes everywhere.
I want you to spray your palate, literally spray your palate. So a bit of a slurping noise, a bit like what you do with cupping in.
Slurping noise.
Slurping noise, you ready? 1, 2, 3. And concentrate on where it has hit your palate. Where's it hit it? Predominantly, it's in which area?
It's at the back of my tongue, actually.
The back, so you're actually tasting a little bit of bitterness of your coffee.
Yeah.
Is there anything near the front?
It's not nearly as strong.
Not nearly as strong?
Not nearly as strong.
I'm tasting a lot of it. It hasn't even hit the back of my tongue. It's sat right at the tip of my tongue. It shows that my pour was a lot sweeter than yours.
Oh, I see. From the introduction of this first espresso machine, it's remarkable to think just how quickly the popularity of coffee and cafes developed in Melbourne. What's even more extraordinary is that today's automated machines allow you to recreate this coffee experience in your own home with none of the skills of a trained barista.
I'm just about to press the espresso button to have a one-shot espresso. What will happen now is the brewing head will ensure that there's no used coffee on the actual brewing unit. It will then raise. The coffee is now being ground, and the ground coffee is falling into the brewing unit. The brewing unit will now move into position where it'll be pre-wet to allow a better infusion of water through the coffee. And it is now, as you can see, now pouring the coffee. Once this is complete, the brewing unit will drop down and it will jettison the used coffee pud. Normally, the door is closed on this particular unit and you have the coffee coming through the two nozzles at the front of the unit. As you can see, the crema is still bubbling to the top, which indicates a very, very good cup of coffee.